One of Hagel's supporters is former Georgia Senator Max Cleland. He was also wounded in Vietnam and went on to serve with Hagel on Capitol Hill. Senator Cleland, good morning.
Morning.
You say these charges are baseless, this opposition is baseless. Where do you think it comes from?
Well, I don't know where it comes from. I think anybody that gets nominated for such a top position here as Secretary of Defense is going to be fully scrutinized, and that's the role of the Senate. So the next step in this process is the Senate hearings. But there's no doubt in my mind that the Senate will ultimately confirm Chuck Hagel for the Secretary of Defense slot, because nobody is going to really seriously consider vetoing this choice of the president in the middle of a war.
Do you think he will have to modify any of the positions he's expressed in order to suggest that he is, in fact, exactly where the president is, for example, on Iran?
No, I don't think Chuck Hagel has to modify anything. I think he has to clarify before the Senate and before the public exactly where he stands and what his record is, because his record has been distorted. A lot of that has been shadowboxing by his critics. They're swatting at nothing. And when you see Chuck Hagel before the United States Senate Armed Services Committee, where I sat for 6 years, you'll see that Chuck Hagel is exactly the kind of person we need. He's been shot at and hit and got holes in his T-shirt on the battlefield. That will bring him great credibility in the Department of Defense, because that's exactly what happens to our young men and women abroad, especially those in Afghanistan.
Senator, let's talk then about some of the specifics and what Senator Hagel has said in the past. He has called for direct, unconditional, and comprehensive talks with the government of Iran, and he has opposed unilateral sanctions in the past. What do you say to those critics of Senator Hagel who say his record shows he's not been tough enough on Iran?
Express those concerns in the hearing. That's exactly the forum that should be the proper forum for these concerns to be expressed. That's the next step in the confirmation process. That is where the Senate plays its role to advise and consent. But there's no doubt in my mind that ultimately the Senate will consent to Chuck Hagel being Secretary of Defense. Not only has he been shot at on the battlefield, he's been shot at on the battlefield in Washington. He understands what's going on, and he's able to defend himself.
But let me ask you about this, too. I mean, he has also called for direct talks with Hamas, which is been labeled a terrorist organization by the United States. And in 2006, he was one of only 12 senators who refused to write the EU asking them to declare Hezbollah a terrorist organization. Why did he do that?
Chuck Hagel is his own man. He wears no man's collar. And he will continue to be his own man. That is the kind of person you want as Secretary of Defense when you're in the room deciding about war and peace. You want somebody to give their honest opinion. Chuck Hagel's opinions can come out in the hearings, and the American people can decide. But there's no question about the fact that the Senate, I think, will ultimately confirm by an overwhelming majority Chuck Hagel as Secretary of Defense, because nobody is going to really seriously consider violating the president's choice here in the middle of a war, in the middle of a shooting war.
All right, Senator Cleland, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.